Oh, look at that. This is Dolly. Say hello to Dolly. Dolly the dolphin. Well, anyway, this is finally announced Sony a7S Mark III. We have been thinking that maybe there will be no a7S anymore because the a7III is good enough, this and that, and then there are everybody else have done the full frame mirrorless camera that's really good at video. We think maybe Sony had given up, but no, this is it. This is Sony a7S series reload back on the top thing. So first up, what it can do. There's no 6K, 8K, but yeah, 4K, but 120p and 10-bit and 422 internal. For so many years, all the Sony Alpha camera all shoot 8K, which is not good enough for today, and today it starts shooting 10-bit, 422, no holding back, 4K, maximum 120 frames per second. And it's not some special slow-mo mode, so you have sound. You can even start normal, slow down, and then normal again, stuff like that. And you have some new codec to shoot from. The highest quality is this a7SII, which means All-I intra-frame, which is a better compression. It still shoots 10-bit 422 internally, and it shoots 4K 60, full frame, no crop. The new a7HS translate to H.265 is a compression gives you smaller file size at the same quality. And with this you can shoot 100 or 120 frames per second. If you don't need all that high quality, you can shoot with the a7S, which is the normal one, H.264. You got even more control for less quality, but you can shoot for longer, give you smaller file size when you don't really need the full quality. Last but not least, the S&Q mode lets you shoot at full quality All-I in 100 or 120 frames per second without sound. One thing to notice, when you shoot 100 frames per second or more, it will crop in a little bit. Also, just like everybody else, it has raw output with HDMI. I don't have any information now, but maybe when this video is released, Atomos will announce the support of the a7S III as well. Now Sony says this a7S Mark, I can't say it now actually. This new camera, everything is new on it. And I think I'm agreeing with that. At first, I thought, oh yeah, everything is new. Is it what is a new camera? It's not it's not a camera at all. No, I think they do fix everything annoying on a Sony camera and then some. And now let's go through the list. It's a long list, a lot of things on it are new or worth talking about. Let's start now, quick, go. If you don't know this already, there are quite a lot of annoying quirks on Sony cameras, at least 10 of them, and the first one I have already mentioned, which is only shoot video in 8-bit, which now they have introduced 10-bit. The second thing annoying is overheating. Now one thing every new Sony camera comes out, people will ask, will it overheat? Because the a7S II is probably the first Sony camera that famously overheat a lot. It's just convenient that Sony choose to release this in summer. This takes 31 degrees Celsius under the sun and have set it to shoot 4K 100 frames per second in PAL system, shooting H.265, and I hope the CPU has to work harder to compress all the video feed. A little bit cloud from time to time, but still it is pretty hot. At the end, it shot for 57 minutes before it overheat and shut down itself, which is pretty impressive. And really, this is an extreme environment for a still camera. Anything more than this, you will want to get a professional camcorder. If you remember, even the Sony a7III, a compact camera, don't really have overheating problem. It's time to stop associate Sony with overheating. Before, no flip screen. No A7 have a flip screen ever, but now, yes, flip screen. For all your crybaby keep talking about there's no flip screen. No, I know. There you are. Fourth annoying thing, impossible menu system. You for stubborn as Sony, they will never change that. Now it's completely redesigned. Look at that. This is really logically divided because like this is shooting, and then this is exposure, this is focusing, and then everything else. For example, if I want to look at peaking, so you go to focusing and peaking is here. If I want to look at steady shot in the setting menu, image stabilization, steady shot. What else? You can touch it. Finally, you can touch the camera. No, not the camera, the menu. Actually, the old camera, you can touch it all you want, but it don't do anything. Remember, this happened to everyone who uses a Sony camera, that you show you a button, looks like you can tap it, but instead it makes you look like an idiot. Also, this touchscreen makes it so much easy to set settings with the flip screen. Something that annoys me so much about Sony camera is that the still and video mode have the same setting, using the same setting. Every time I was shooting video with this camera or some other RX100, shooting video with Cine 4, whatever, S-Log, when I switch to photo, it's still Cine 4 and or S-Log. Who shoot photo with S-Log? Every time I want to take a photo, I have to change everything. I have to change the AF point, color profile, blah blah blah. Finally, it is separate on this camera, and the just released ZV-1 don't even have this. What? What? Okay, in reality, they have changed this for a long time, but the a7S II still have single card slot. Just like many other new Sony a7 camera, of course, it got dual card slot. Now, this record video simultaneously at the same time to both cards. And now we have this CF Express Type A. I thought CF Express is new, and there's an even newer one, Type A. This looks a little bit like Nintendo card thing, but at the same time, both card slots can take SD card as well. So don't be too worried, but a little bit worried, because you really want a fast card. In this table, you can see what kind of expensive card you have to get. So you can see you have to have at least V60 SD card. And when you get this camera, of course you want to shoot with the highest quality, then you should get V90 card. That means if I'm upgrading to this camera, I have to say bye-bye to all my Extreme Pro cards. Now this is my usual a7S II in-body stabilization with the lens OSS, optical stabilization. Now you have seen me use it for a lot of time already. And you may be familiar with how steady or how not steady this camera is. Maybe you don't, because usually I add in stabilization in post-production in Final Cut Pro. So usually it looks more stable than it actually is. So it actually is like this. And if you don't know, Sony stabilization is kind of like a little bit, just like when you turn it on or off, just like different. And now on the a7S Mark II, I'm using a lens without OSS as well. So now it's just the in-body stabilization. But oh, the face detection, the eye detect me with the mask on. But now this camera got something new. Something new from ZV-1, which is digital stabilization. When you turn it on, it clocks in a little bit. So now this is the in-body stabilization with this much heavier camera, my shaking hands, and the active steady shot, which is the digital stabilization. Now, as I mentioned, the Sony steady shot, at least in video mode, it really doesn't work that well. I really put high hope on this steady shot active mode, which is digital stabilization. Turns out with this, it only finally looks as good as other brands of image stabilization, which I guess is still good news. At least it's caught up, and it only comes with a minimal crop. Just know that it doesn't work when you shoot over 100 frames per second. Now this frame probably everyone knows that Sony camera, the grip isn't really that comfortable, but they have been improved this along the years. a7S II, really the grip is so small, there's no place for my pinky. a7 Mark III improved a little bit, but it's still a struggle for my really thin pinky. Now a7S Mark III has improved a lot even over the a7R Mark IV. It has the biggest grip than any other Sony still cameras. Personally, I still think it's not round enough at the corners, but then at least it is now reasonably comfortable. So a lot of old Sony camera had the record button at the side at a really weird angle, which is date back to NEX era. Recently, Sony moved it to the back, just like this a7 Mark III. But now a7S Mark III, they move it to the top. It actually replaced the C1 button on the a7S Mark II, which I think maybe Sony knows that a lot of people change the C1 button into record button, so they just, okay, just turn it into a record button then. And you can customize this to any other function as well, which maybe you get the a7S Mark III and don't shoot video with it, so I don't know. It's like people have a well done steak. What's the point? I don't know. Well, no judging. Well, I just judged. Sorry. Now, of course, 5 years between two cameras, there are some features you know that Sony will put into it from existing cameras. And of course, this has real-time tracking and IAF. It is really good. This is one thing that I love Sony camera so much. And yes, of course, it got IAF. Now I walk out from the screen and come back. And I have a face mask on as well, and it's still, and this backlighting is still able to pick up my eye. Eye switching. And it's supposed to be 30% better. I don't have another camera to compare to, but I think it is around, it's smaller. Even the face is smaller, it can still pick up the eye. I'm not sure is it still picking up, I can't see, but yeah. Now after I've done this test, I have a chance to test out the Canon R5 and R6. But it seems like Sony is better at picking up eyes even with a face mask on. Too bad I didn't have them at the same time, so I can't do direct head-to-head comparison. And of course this has a new battery, new Z-type battery. Much better Z-type battery that I can shoot for a whole day. This is even not a new battery. This is an old battery that Sony Hong Kong gave it to me to use. In the overheat test, after it shot for 57 minutes, it still has 31% of battery life. And now it can run with USB-C power deliver power. And something else, the highest resolution 9 million dots EVF. Much improved volume shutter than the A7 Mark III. And something hidden in the menu. For video file name, you can have the date in the file name as well. Although this do red. What is this? This is when you recording, it got a red circle, not circle, the frame. It got a red frame around the frame. It's like the Panasonic S1X and Atomos recorder. Too bad it doesn't have a tally light, which is something so easy to do. They already got a light. I don't know why they don't use it as a tally light, but this is something really minor, which they probably think that frame is good enough, I guess. Maybe. Don't know. Especially tally light is available on the ZV-1, which may save you from this embarrassing situation.
Just have a camera, and I'm not even rolling.
You're not rolling?
5 years ago, I was here with the just announced a7S Mark II and take a shot of how good the low light is. And now I'm here again with the brand new a7S Mark III and try to do this test again. And I am just vlogging with the camera itself. There's no lighting at all. The light is just from the LCD screen. That's all. Is it true? I'm not carrying anything. It's just this camera and the screen. And that screen is not that bright. This is just looks so bright. This in reality looks like this. So for the last 5 years, there's no other camera can beat the low light performance of my a7S Mark II. Not even the GH5S, not the a7 Mark III, not the S1X. Why is that? Because this camera only has 12 megapixels. I mean, your camera, not your camera, your smartphone probably got more than 12 megapixels. And on here, full frame sensor, much bigger sensor, and it only has 12 megapixels. Its pixels are bigger, so it gather more light. Not even it only got 12 megapixels, it has a backside illuminated sensor. a7S Mark II still haven't got it. Now it's back illuminated. Now this is from a7 Mark III shooting at the maximum ISO 102,400. This is similar to what I can see with my naked eye. Now interesting is that my 5-year-old a7S Mark II get the same result with one stop lower ISO. But you can already see difference when you compare it to the new Sony a7S III. Well, of course it's newer. But the differences is even more different when you push it to higher and higher ISO. Especially the old a7S II has more and more red tint when you bump up the ISO. Maybe you think how many people will actually shoot in this kind of situation, but even in the more normal situation you will see difference. Now I don't have too much time with this camera, this is not that dark. But still you will see difference in the noise level comparing to the brilliant a7 Mark III. Even with my old a7S Mark II, I can shoot slightly underexposed protecting highlight but then bump up the shadow bit in post, still don't have to worry too much about noise. This is why I have been still using my really old a7S II. Not that I shoot in the dark all the time, but when I shoot by myself, I can't carry any lighting with me. I need a camera that gives me really clean image even if I shoot in environment that is not that bright at all. For all this year, I have been shooting in a lot of really dark situations. One less thing to worry about and more creative freedom. So this is only a7S III. We have been waiting for it for so long. Well, maybe you don't, but I have been waiting for it for so long since the a7S II. Almost 5 years now. Now when it's released, which is just now, we know that it doesn't have 8K, it don't even have 6K. But then, well, some people will argue that, especially the Canon R5 has 8K, which is a great news, it is good. But of course now we know that the Canon R5 overheats, and when I try to edit those, my computer can't handle it. I have to transcode, I have to set the resolution to lower so that I can actually edit it. So it will probably need a new computer, need hard drive to handle that. I always think 6K would be a really great middle ground because you can crop in when you're editing for 4K. At least my 2017 iMac can handle 6K footage from this Panasonic S1H. But then you can see that how big and heavy this is because it has a ventilation fan, well, cooling fan, not ventilation. It don't have to breathe. The a7S III is based on this really robust a7S II. Now this a7S II is given to me by B&H because when I first start my channel, I don't have a camera and they want to give me any camera that I want, and I picked the a7S II. I think it's quite interesting that Sony being sensible this time, because before that a7S II was the first still camera that can shoot 4K internally, but then it overheats a lot. But now the a7S III, it only have 4K, but 10-bit, 42, 120 frames per second. It has all the top of the game feature set. It just has everything that you want, but nothing that you don't need. And then I think the most important thing about Sony is that they are not that stubborn anymore. They have changed everything that we are annoyed by them, and that's good. Become a really good choice, which I really tempting, really want one to upgrade from this a7S II. Now before I end, I have to thank you everyone who support this channel on Patreon and the YouTube membership thing. Because of you guys, you keep me going. And special shout out to Stephen Zimmerman. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. You picked the Your Name Here reward so that you guys can see his name and his URL, his website in the description down below. He has a website, he's a photographer, so check out his work. But still, thank you for everyone who is my YouTube member and Patreon. You essentially paying for something that you don't have to. You like this channel so much, so thank you everyone. And if you want to chip in and help out, check out the link in the description for my Patreon page and the join button next to the subscribe button. Thank you so much, everyone.